Tom Cunliffe has released his new album, Secret Exhibition. Here is Tom talking about inspirations from Cale to Cohen and why it took 3 years to release the record after the recording only took 5 days.
COVID really stretched out the album cycle.
And from what I read, though, it only took 5 days to record.
Yeah, totally. That's a little bit of a
stretch.
It's a little misleading because that first lockdown, I basically spent the whole thing in a little room off the side of our house in Titirangi, and I just was like, well, got a month. What am I going to do? And locked myself in there and spent the time kind of arranging the songs and playing with string arrangements and doing all the things, doing the bass and stuff, and all at a very like low level. But just we had quite a lot of the feel for it by the time we got into the studio. So there were a lot of other days before the just recording of it. And having said that, it changed a lot once we started recording. Like once I talked to Dave, and it's Dave Kahn. Once we chatted about it, there were plenty of places where we went, this is a bit too much, or we'll take that out, or do this differently. And 5 whole days is actually quite a lot of time, when you're just doing one thing, just focusing on the music, and you kind of close the doors of the studio and get down in there, and time kind of stops. So it did feel like a good amount of time.
So how did you and Dave Kahn work together? Who did what production wise?
Well, I had these quite filled out demos, and I was chatting to Dave, and he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I sort of had all these quite abstract ideas, and he was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And then in the end, he was just like, well, let's just do this, but better. So that made things simple. And he was like, just get good players. And so he suggested Tom Broom for playing drums, who was just incredible. And my friend Eamon I've been playing with for a long time. So that was just a natural fit. And he's an incredible bass player. And I knew I wanted the upright bass. So we had, and Dave plays so many things. So I knew he'd be able to take all the string stuff, which I'd done with like little samples. And so we kind of just had that bass, and we just, that basic group. And we had the demos to listen to every time we started a new track and go, oh, something like this. I mean, Tom on the drums was just great. He'd just listen to the track beforehand and goes, hear my little stupid sample drum thing and go, oh yeah, I get that, and then do it just 1,000 times better. And
gotcha,
like real drums.
Let's pick a song. I won't say at random because it's not, but "Refusing the Wave" because it came out. You have a kind of a video thingy with it, and it's almost 5.5 minutes long. So there's a lot of stuff involved in that, songwriting wise and production wise. So take us inside that one if you don't mind.
Joy is the muse, song is the light, desire is the day that stays open all night, style is the script that abandons the page, art is the water refusing the wave.
That one is probably the one that has had the most iterations lyrically. I wrote maybe the first 4 or 5 verses or something came out quite quickly, maybe back in 2019. I was staying at my friend's house and looking after her dogs, and I had sort of 2 weeks of just writing, and and that was kind of a response to I remember I'd been reading a lot of Zadie Smith essays, and she'd written one about joy and the nature of joy, and I guess I started taking that approach of analyzing these quite fundamental emotions and trying to rethink them, and then it sort of turned out to be this sort of cascading metaphor thing. And once that structure was there lyrically, there was, it was sort of endless the way I could pull it apart.
Right.
And so I had that, and I had the chords. I think I'd been practicing sort of Philip Glass piano stuff, and
Right.
I think some of that crept in there, and so I had like the first half of it, and then I ended up with about 11 minutes worth of lyrics that I thought were going to be the final song, and one of the a third of it then I ended up cutting out because I felt like it distracted from the other two, which I felt were the first half being set, being universal, and then the second half sort of being current. And musically, yeah. So it was sort of that repetitive, minimalist piano stuff, and I think the key thing for me was when I had the long viola sweeping thing in behind that kind of adds a sort of musical or a melodic aspect to it, when my singing is quite, it's all about the words and just less melodic, I guess.
Who's playing the viola? Was it Dave?
Dave's playing the viola, yeah. I think we were both into John Cale in a big way at the time, and so
I love John Cale.
Yeah, me too.
I think he's got a new album coming out like next month or something. So,
does he?
Yes, he does.
Oh, that's exciting.
So
that's great.
Be looking forward to that. Yeah. So in addition to John Cale, because I was playing some of your stuff with my flatmate here, and of course he rattled off Leonard Cohen and Jeff Buckley, and I heard a little Harry Nilsson in there, but I love hearing the John Cale.
Oh,
so are all those accurate? Are all those relevant? What or are they completely off base?
No, really, really accurate. I mean, I guess they're not necessarily. I didn't go into it thinking this is like this, but they're all people that I really loved in the past and still do. Leonard Cohen, Bob Dylan, Nilsson is like someone who I got into after the last record. People had done that comparison, and I'd be like, oh, okay,
really?
Let me check this out. Yeah, because I knew Harry Nilsson as the person who had done the Fred Neil song. So I was into Fred Neil,
right? Everybody's talking,
and he had done Everybody's Talking, and so I knew that, and then I sort of delved a little deeper, and the Nilsson Smilsson record is just yeah.
Well,
really
it's amazing because he's known
guess,
for Everybody's Talking and Without You, which are two songs that he didn't write, but he's such an amazing songwriter himself. So he's got that kind of weird thing going on.
Well, there's that song he wrote. I can't remember what it's called. Maybe it's called Raindrop or something. It's just about a raindrop going down the windowsill. It's such a beautiful little observation and amazing song. I think that's on that album. But he's pretty incredible. I love the way that he's not defined by one genre or anything.
Definitely
or
not,
even within a record, he's like, he can do anything. It can go in any direction. The songs don't need to really link together, and it feels very free. He's whatever he wants to do, he's going to do it. So I really like that. Yeah.
Now, I did read that you kind of, I think, or somebody who wrote this says this is an explorer's album or a record. So is that accurate, and what does that mean?
I think when you have to write things about your album, and
I know.
I guess when and when I
then you get them thrown back at you. You go, no, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, no, I do know what you're talking about because I wrote that. So I thought when I was sort of thinking about it and having to come up with trying to define it without defining it too much. Basically, the songs were written in all sorts of places. I went on a European tour in 2019, for 2 months. I was sort of traveling around Europe playing little shows,
Right.
house concerts, and little small bars, and whoever would take me. And they're really good over in Europe. They'll like give you accommodation and drinks for the night and a little bit of pay, even if
Yep.
you're just some random dude from New Zealand.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
so I was doing a lot of that, and a lot of the songs, a lot of the lyrics anyway, have connections to these various places, cafes in Munich, I remember, and yeah, even, like I said, my friend's house in and my house in Titirangi, and then there was even a song I wrote I pulled over on the motorway to to get the words down,
Right.
and so yeah, it's so for me it's a record where the feeling of it is exploration. It's kind of it feels lonely to me in a way, but in the sense of like, that space that's yet to be filled. So
Right.
you might be alone, but then you've got a whole world to fill that gap with. So there are different place names, and maybe it's a state of mind that I was in when I was writing the record. So that's where that came from.
Cool. Now, another one I wanted
Yeah.
to touch on, if you don't mind. It's called "They Only See the Scars," which to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it had an early Bee Gees vibe to it, like "I Gotta Get a Message
Oh,
to You"
wow.
kind of thing. And I love the guitar at the end. I don't know if is that Dave or you or whoever is playing it, but there's some pretty cool stuff. So take it
Yeah,
from
that's
there.
Dave. That's Dave. Yeah, the guitar solo was we were actually we were first going to just leave it, and all right, this is feeling really good. We're just going to keep playing. Just let
Yep.
it go out to the end. We're feeling good, and then we were like, oh, does it need something? And then Dave played the solo, and we took it in and put it in, took it out. We're like, we miss it, get it back in
Yep.
there. It's so
Yep.
and at one point it was the only. Oh well, no, there's actually a couple of guitar solos on the record, but it was sort of it's not really a guitar solo type of record. So
No, it's not. Wouldn't call it that.
yeah, yeah. So but we thought that makes it more interesting,
Yeah.
And the song was kind of inspired by this movie called Frances Ha, about this girl who's sort of in New York, and she's late 20s, doesn't know what she's doing with her life. She wants to be a dancer, but she's not really doing the things or that she needs to do to be a dancer, and it's kind of, she's a bit of a mess or whatever. But for me, I thought she was the best character I've ever seen,
Right.
and it made me make me think about how I think sometimes the people that I like the most are the ones that are a bit of a mess. And they do beautiful things and they create amazing stuff, and it's about those sort of people, I guess.
Cool. So now you're doing a few live gigs as well coming up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've teaming up with Ebony Lamb, who used to be in Ebon Sparrow,
Yep.
and we're going around playing a bunch of shows around the country. First, we're going to Wairarapa and Wellington, which is 8th and the 9th. I think there's still tickets for Wellington, so if you're listening down there, grab them up. Then we're going to New Plymouth on the 15th, which they do these pop-up gigs there. So we're gonna play a show for the people of New Plymouth.
Yep.
Then we've got Auckland, and then
Where are
the
you playing in
last week,
Auckland?
Freedom Margolis,
Oh, great. Okay.
which is sold out, unfortunately.
Well, it's very tiny.
Fortunately, but yeah, it is very small. Yeah, so we kind of wanted to create these little intimate, because it's just solo stuff. So
Right.
like, both Eb and I are playing solo, and then we'll play some songs together. But we're kind of taking it back to that old, person and piano, or person
Right.
and guitar.
Cool.
And then we're going to Oamaru and Christchurch on the 28th and 29th. So if you're down south, come along.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. Well, I just got back from the States, so I'm kind of chilling for travel.
Staying in Auckland, yeah.
It was exhausting. First time I've been out of the country in like 3 years, and it was.
Oh, was it a good trip?
Yeah, it was. I went to Nashville for the first time to this thing called Americana Fest. So it was
wow!
like a whole week of full-on live music from beginning to end. But it was great.
I'd love to go to Nashville.
Yep, you'd probably enjoy it. It's music everywhere. It's
it's
like they call it Music City, and they got that one right.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, right? Because sometimes music feels quite, I don't know, it's like a afterthought in some cities, but it'd be interesting to go somewhere where it's the main thing.
And like it's probably smaller. I'm sure it's smaller than Auckland, but the amount of venues that were there, and they were just pumping music day and night. You know, morning, afternoon, and evening. Like it was ridiculous.
Oh, that's so cool.
So yeah. Anyway, so are you thinking about what you're doing next, or you're just getting this one out of your system?
No, I've started writing the next album. I took a trip to Italy. My brother was actually getting married, so I went over to the Northern Hemisphere, and on the way back, spent maybe like a few weeks in Italy, and I sort of just went to this little island called Procida, which is off the coast of Napoli, and I just sort of bunkered down and started writing, and I got sort of 4 or 5 songs at the start of the next record, and I'm trying a slightly different style of writing, a bit more minimal and a bit mixing the metaphorical and real in a different way.
I'm sure John Cale would approve.
Yeah, I hope so. I'll try get him a record and see what he thinks.
Yeah, send one out to him.
Maybe he could produce the next record.
Yeah, why not? He's quite the producer. He's done a few decent ones.
Yeah, he's had some success at that.
Yes, he has. All right, very good. Well, thanks for spending time talking to me on a Sunday morning. I appreciate it. And,
thank you so much.
Good luck with the live shows. Hope to see you when you're here somehow, somewhere else. Weasel myself into Frida.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Cool.
See you
Thanks
later.
so much, Marty.
Yep.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.